I had been arrested, I denied steadfastly any involvement with the murder of Mr. AKA.
Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi says new crime prevention wardens will be deployed in townships with high crime rates at the end of this month. This follows concerns that he did not touch on crime prevention in minority areas during his State of the Province address last month. Panyaza says 2,800 young people from townships such as Westbury, Eldorado Park and Lenasia are being trained to fight crime. He says they are putting in a lot of resources towards this initiative.
We are investing resources to ensure that our communities are safe. Majority of our townships are unpoliced. People that have to go to the bus station, people that have to go to the taxi rank, people that have just to go to the sponsor shop, people that after entertainment they are walking back home, they are mugged, killed, and purely because they come from those communities, no one cares. It can't be. So the wardens that we are putting, former military veterans who are highly skilled, highly trained, who can use various weapons, we are just harnessing their skills to come back to fight crime.
The South African Cabin Crew and Alliance Union says the termination of the SAA deal with Takatso Consortium is a vindication. Godan yesterday announced the deal with Takatso to buy a majority shareholding in the national airliner was off. He said the decision was made by mutual agreement and not due to any political pressure. President of the SA Cabin Crew and Alliances Union, Advocate Christopher Shabangu, says this was a dodgy deal.
From the start, we've been saying that the strategic partner of SAA at the time, particularly when SAA was seriously struggling, you needed to have partners that were experienced in running the airline, and they were there. People that would take the airline to another level. So there were about 5 companies who are experienced that were willing to partner with South African Airways, and unfortunately, those were overlooked by the minister.
Statistics South Africa released the mining sector's production data for January, with production in the gold mining sector declining by 12.7% year-on-year, compared with a revised decline in production of 3.6% in December. Production in the platinum group metal sector increased by 3.3%, and total mining production declined by 3.3% year-on-year in January, compared with a revised rise in production of 0.2% in December. And finally, police in Zimbabwe say they've arrested the suspected leader of a religious cult and rescued dozens of women and children in a village in northern Mashonaland West Province. 56-year-old Ishmael Chukurongwera was arrested alongside 7 other senior members of the cult. Police say more than 250 children found on his farm in Harare were undocumented and were used as cheap labor. Police say they also discovered a gravesite at the farm where 16 people have been secretly interred, including 7 infants. The BBC's Will Ross has more.
Police in Zimbabwe have described Ishmael Chukurongwera as a self-styled prophet who had more than 1,000 members in his sect on a farm near the capital Harare. A statement said most of the children found there had no birth certificates and were not allowed to go to school. It also mentioned the unregistered burials of 7 infants. Video footage taken by local media during the raid showed women dressed in white complaining that the police in riot gear were taking away their children. One of the sect leaders tells a reporter that God forbids children going to school.
Recapping the top story, the Senzo Mehiwa main trial will resume tomorrow at the High Court in Pretoria. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Sundays at 2 p.m. S3 is your home for Indian cinema. From February the 18th, sit back and relax as you enjoy a world of colorful entertainment. We guarantee you a memorable experience with the best Bollywood has to offer. Enjoy the Holy Festival of Color with premium Indian cinema movies. Catch all the drama, adventure, comedy and romance on Sundays, 2 p.m. exclusive to S3.
Business owners, don't waste your time searching for an employee that has it all. They do not exist. But I will tell you what does exist. The Kia K2700 Workhorse. It's versatile, powerful, and reliable. It also arrives on time every day. Plus, you get 40,000 Rand cashback. It's the business partner you've been waiting for. Visit your nearest Kia dealership for a test drive. T's and C's apply.
Kia, movement that inspires. SABC Sport remembers the fallen hero, the legend of the beautiful game. Spiwe Dr. Mandi Mkhonza, a great football analyst with a unique language that hits straight to the hearts of the fans.
Tactically, the teams are in a different level, and the quality also show.
This former defender just knew how to draw the undivided attention of the football-loving community. Rest in peace, Dr. Mnandi. You left a remarkable footprint. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hi there, this is Jerry Mofokeng Mageta.
The award-winning SAFM playwriting competition is back.
We're going to start calling some people, Tata Jerry. Once they're on the line, I want you to tell them why we have called them. Keith, good morning.
Good morning. Hi.
Keith, what prompted you to write this particular play, Skeletons?
I think there was something about a kind of emotional reconciliation that interested me.
So for that reason, the judges decided to give it second place at 35,000 rands. So congratulations to you, Keith.
Wow, thank you.
Congratulations, Keith. All the best, eh?
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Oh man, we pass, just try to stare me down. And when I looked at you, you looked at the ground. I don't know who he is, but I think that you do. That can matter. Who is he and what is he to you? There's something in my heart and in your eyes that tells me he's not someone just passing by. And when you cleared your throat, was that your cue? That don't matter now. Who is he and what is he to you? Who is he and what is he to you? And when I add the sum of you and me, I get so confused. I keep coming up with three. Now you're much too much, you're much too much for one, and not enough for two. That can matter. Who is he? What is he to you? Now I know you think I want not much for my intuition. Is that what you really think, or are you wishing? Before you read
Oh man, it is the sounds of singer-songwriter Michelle Ndengo celebrating her 55th year this year. And she's done so incredibly in the music arena, and of course influenced so many other musicians. In fact, she's helmed as being at the very beginning, or she's celebrated rather as being at the helm of the neo-soul movement back in the 1990s. And some people would further say that she is the reason, one of the reasons, we have the likes of D'Angelo, we have the likes of Erykah Badu, and so many other really household names that have come out of this incredible neo-soul movement. She leads a rather quiet life and, releasing music on the occasion. I had the distinct pleasure of traveling to the New York Winter Jazz Festival back in 2019 with our very own Dogotela Ndunduzo Makatini, and we got to see her in performance, and I got to witness, of course, two really incredible world-class musicians who share mutual respect, orbit in the same area and share the same air and exchange information and conversation and a great excitement and celebration for the work that each one of them did in their respective corners. Michelle Ndengo, who is he and what is he to you? That is how we open up the show this afternoon. Hope you enjoyed that one. If you are live streaming with us today, probably saw me bust a move or two on our live streams via our social media platforms. You can find us wherever you are, we are. It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM this afternoon. Thursday, how quickly time flies. We're going to be engaging a conversation that's looking at a new survey, first of its kind, that suggests that more than half of SA mothers have experienced obstetric violence. It's called the hashtag Count Our Births surveys, and we'll catch up with Embrace's leader, Julie Mentor, on the other side of this. And then, of course, because it is Thursday, we're also dipping into the world of arts, and stages, pages, screens, and more is coming up in just a matter of minutes on the other side of 2 o'clock today. We're having a conversation that I think is very pertinent, given the headlines that we see currently, given what we know about the Jocelyn Smith disappearance, that very unfortunate situation. She's still missing with no declarations either way as to whether or not she's presumed alive, still days and weeks after her disappearance. And so we're going to be having a conversation around just the scourge of missing children in South Africa, and the interventions maybe that we need to look into in as far as curbing this very disheartening trend that we keep seeing. That's coming up on the other side of 2, and I'll tell you more about what else is on that agenda closer to the time. 086 000 2032 is the number you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to send through a voice note. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come right back.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Hashtag Count Our Births is a new survey that suggests that more than half of SA mothers have experienced obstetric violence. 53% of respondents said that they've experienced some type of obstetric violence, and we thought we'd catch up with Embrace's leader, Julie Mentor, and they undertook this particular survey. And of course, Khuliso Mananga, who's a litigation attorney with the Women's Legal Center. Let me start with you, Julie. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having us on.
It's only a pleasure. Okay, let's firstly understand, what was the lead up or the motivation for initiating hashtag Count Our Births?
So Embrace has been involved in the work of advocating for women and mothers, specifically mothers' rights and their right to respectful maternity care for years. This is not a new piece of work that we've been involved in.
Yeah.
But one of the things that has come up in all of our work, we produced a documentary series that came out about a year and a half ago. One of the things that's come up repeatedly is that women often feel quite isolated in when they report their incidents of obstetric violence, and we hear sentiments like, "Oh, I thought I was the only one," or "I thought that what I experienced was normal," or I kind of was deserving of this disrespect. And what we don't have in South Africa, but we know other countries, specifically other countries in the global south, are starting to do is to get a sense of how prevalent is this violence, because I think that one of the ways that it is women's experiences are diminished is when we're saying, "Oh, well, sorry you had this experience, it's a you problem."
Yeah.
We don't have numbers. These are all isolated incidents. And so we thought, well, ideally what we need is a national prevalence study. This is not that. This is a precursor of a survey, and we wanted to give women an opportunity to put up their hands and say, "Me too, count my experience. This was my experience and it was real." And so we launched it during 16 days of activism against gender-based violence and femicide last year, because we believe that obstetric violence is a form of GBV. And women came out and completed the survey online and told us their stories. And as you said, from what we heard, about 53% of women have reported experiencing obstetric violence in at least one of their birthing experiences.
Wow, what a number. And maybe let's even, just to ensure that we're all on the same page, and of course, Kholiso, I'm going to jump you into this conversation in just a moment. Let's also understand, Julie, in as far as when we talk obstetric violence, what kind of actions are we talking about here? What's considered to be obstetric violence? Julie? Oh, we lost Julie for a second as we try and get her back again. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Of course, if you are logged on to our streaming platforms, primarily on social media, then you'll see that we've started integrating Skype visuals as well, so that you can see our guests. And we just started sort of embedding this yesterday. So give us a moment or two if there's some glitches to the conversation. But I wonder if Kholiso is still on the line with us.
Yeah, still here.
Okay. Kholiso, let me just jump you in while we wait for Julie to reconnect. Let me jump you in and just find out. I mean, a survey like this, obviously very necessary. As Julie says, it is a precursor to a national study. But a survey like this, very necessary. And considering the legalities that could also arise from instances of obstetric violence.
Yes. Definitely, there are a range of legalities that could come in, and I'm sure Julie can also kind of speak to that as well when you have her back. But after this experience, women really do have a range of avenues they can explore if and should they want to kind of seek justice for the treatment that they received, and also if they would like to also kind of, in the grander scheme of things, kind of improve the systems that we have and ensure that other women don't experience having similar experiences. So there are a range of options that women can go through, ranging from in hospital to externally to
Oh, it seems we're just having some network issues with our guests. Maybe let's take a quick pause. And then we'll come back into this conversation. And I wonder, as we lead into it, if you yourself have experienced any kind of violence or violation or perhaps harassment and abuse, if you've engaged the health sector, primarily as a woman, or perhaps somebody, a woman or a young family member that's experienced a really bad engagement in public health. Let's just take a quick break and then we'll come back, and hopefully by then we'll have audio back with our guests.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Beyond the Headline on SAFM.
Do you know, as the Road Accident Fund, whether there have been any cases at all where the courts are actually in cahoots with these lawyers?
The courts are not necessarily in cahoots with the lawyers. So it's the practice that has been happening over the years, that you have 82% of the cases where the judges are just rubber stamping what the lawyers have written, and that's Judge Dunstan was warning against this practice, to say they need to look deeper into the documents that they are rubber stamping.
Yeah, Macintosh Polela is the head of communications at the Road Accident Fund.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Alrighty, let's try, and hopefully this time we can engage the conversation fully before we head to the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side of this. We've abandoned visuals just for the moment via our live stream so that we can actually have this conversation. Julie, let me double back to you, and we just say, just by way of us understanding, what do we mean? What do you mean when we talk obstetric violence? What does that entail?
Very, very important question, and I think it's unfortunately quite a tongue twister of a term that doesn't help in popularizing it. But obstetric violence effectively refers to disrespect, neglect, or abuse of a person seeking care, maternity care, so during pregnancy, during their birth and delivery, and in the postpartum period. And this care is at the hands of a healthcare provider, could be an obstetrician, it could be a midwife, it could be anyone, actually a nurse, anyone working within a facility or who is designated to provide care for a person who is pregnant or giving birth. But when we say, it's not, so violence is obviously, it is a very strong word, and violence can look like physical violence where women are pinched, slapped to open up their legs, held down, restrained. It can look like lack of consent, so medical procedures done without informed consent, where even if someone is saying something, trying to explain a procedure, if the person can't understand you, then they have not given informed consent. It can look like neglect. Women have told us about, sitting in birth facilities for hours in pain, crying out and being ignored. It can look like coercion. It can look like a number of different things. And all of that is a very worrying sign of violence to someone when they're at their most vulnerable and in need of quality, dignified care.
Yeah. Let me also sneak this in. When the survey was undertaken, was it primarily amongst patients and clients who utilize public health services, or was it spread across public and private?
So, as I mentioned right at the beginning, this is sort of a first foray into an opportunity to give women a voice, and so it was a digital survey which does influence who is able to participate. That being said, it was sort of about 50-50 split in terms of who gave birth privately versus who gave birth in public health. What we did notice when we drilled down into people's responses is that the women who gave birth in public healthcare facilities reported double double the amount of obstetric violence than those in private healthcare. But it's also important to note that those in private healthcare were not exempt from the experience of obstetric violence. So it is not that, so whilst yes, of course, when you look at sort of structural issues, resource constraints, overburdened healthcare workers in the public health system, it paints a picture that is obviously makes it much more likely for obstetric violence to be able to occur. But one of the reasons why we talk about this as an issue of gender-based violence is that women are not discriminated against in terms of being the recipients of this violence, and you can experience obstetric violence even if you are accessing private healthcare.
Absolutely. Let's hold it there for a second as we head into the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side of this and continue our conversation. And we'll look at the legal aspects of obstetric violence and some of the recourse that could be available to you or somebody that you know who's experienced some kind of violence, harassment, neglect, or, just any form of any of the actions that Julie has underlined for us in this conversation. And Musa is standing by with the headline news.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Bridget. In the headlines, Eastern Cape Police are hot on the heels of 4 suspects allegedly involved in the kidnapping of a 34-year-old woman in Kariga. It's alleged Sonam Gaija was accosted by 4 men while exiting her driveway on Wednesday. The Senzumehiwa main trial will resume tomorrow at the High Court in Pretoria. This follows Judge Rata Mogotleng's ruling today that the confession statements allegedly made by the accused Muzi Sibiya and Bongani Ntanzi be admitted as evidence. And wildlife officials on the Indonesian island of Sumatra have launched a search for at least 2 critically endangered tigers after 2 villagers were killed in recent attacks. I'll have details on these and other stories at 2.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in the middle of a conversation looking at a new survey that suggests that more than half of SA mothers have experienced obstetric violence. And these were women who participated in the hashtag #CountOurBirths7. The survey was completely anonymous and open to women and birthing people who had given birth in South Africa, with just under 500 respondents who completed the survey. 53% of the respondents said that they'd experienced some type of obstetric violence during their birthing process or in postpartum. And we are in conversation with Julie Mentor, who's with Embrace, and of course Khuliso Mananga, who is a litigation attorney with Women's Legal Center. And Khuliso, let's jump back into exploring, the legal avenues and the legal recourse that could be available for somebody who has experienced some kind of obstetric violence.
Sure, not a problem, Bridget. I can speak to that. For women to remember when they are in these situations or in these spaces is, first and foremost, they really need to remember how important record keeping is, which is why part of the things that we endorse in ensuring prevention is having someone or companion with you, whether it be a mom, a sister, or your partner, someone to look after your best interests. And that will also include, if anything goes wrong, someone is there to also keep a note of all of those things for you.
Record keeping, a very important aspect. And then in terms of just, the avenues that would be available, perhaps even at institution level, if you feel that you are being mistreated or perhaps you're not getting the best service from your health practitioner, institutionally, are there avenues that one could explore before even maybe going the legal route?
And you have an array of
I think Kholiso's connection is letting us down. But Julie, I'm sure you're in a position to clue us in on this from just a recourse perspective, because some people might go, legally it's a lot of resource, it's a lot of finance.
On following up on next steps, and can take on the complaint from when you initially make it, and they have access to your health records. So that's a good place to start. Should that already show indication of friction?
Apologies to Julie and Kholiso, and of course to you listening. Like I said, we have been streaming live for the last couple of weeks, and we've started trying to integrate the visuals of our guests as well, so you don't just see an SA banner when we're talking to guests via the phone. And there's a lot of kinks still to be ironed out. But Julie, I beg your indulgence. Yes, we're about to talk about the recourse that is available to mothers if they've experienced some kind of obstetric violence.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a few things that you can do, but I'm also going to say if anyone's listening and they're feeling like they're having that aha moment, like this happened to me and actually I want to report it, or I'm pregnant and I'm feeling anxious and I want to know who to call, that we have developed a resource that's available on the embrace.org.za website. It's downloaded. You can also find it on all our social media platforms. Very simple, and points out the different steps, step by step, on whom you need to call or whom you can reach out to if you think that you've experienced obstetric violence or you fear that you might. So just so that people aren't feeling like they're needing to rush and find pens, we do have that resource, and I can also share it with your producer. But yes, starting at the facility level. So first of all, the health ombudsman is a reliable place that you can absolutely report any incident of violence or any complaints at a facility level, and you can do that. If you are sitting with someone who's experienced violence, or you're still in hospital, or you've just been in hospital, you can reach out to the health ombuds and lay a complaint. You can also lay a complaint directly at the facility level. Almost every facility should have a complaints box. I do want to acknowledge, though, that can be a very traumatic experience for people, or people might worry about completing forms like that because they do fear, and the feedback that we've got, that people do fear that even going near the box might, especially if you're in the facility, might make you feel extra vulnerable. And so we do want to acknowledge that, but you can follow up with facilities after, and that is your right to do so. You can also report, depending on what kind of violence occurred to you. If it was a nurse, you can report to the South African Nursing Council. If it is a medical practitioner, to the HPCSA. So they are, and these are all the sort of litigation steps that you can report an incident to. And we know, for example, the HPCSA, we have a few positive instances where they have followed up, fairly promptly and taken claims seriously. So we do want to encourage people to report, but we also want to acknowledge that one of the things we're calling for as a movement for mothers is a more streamlined, user-friendly system that is not going to further discriminate or further victimize people who are already in a vulnerable space. And so it is confusing, the fact that we had to put this little resource together, because it was quite difficult for people to be able to navigate this on their own. And again, remembering that people are doing this in the space of being freshly postpartum, trying to care for a tiny baby, healing physically, emotionally, and now you've got to go through this whole process of reporting what happens to you. From our survey, only 13% of women actually tried to report it, and many gave up along the way because it was just exhausting. So there are avenues to report. You can report to your police station as well. But I do want to acknowledge that these are not perfect processes, and that we absolutely owe the mothers of South Africa so much better in terms of making these services mother-friendly, so that people can get the justice that they so rightly deserve.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we talk about it, and you of course gave us an idea of what we're talking about here, but a lot of these sort of violent encounters are life-threatening and can lead, end up in dire consequence. And so it's important for mothers in these situations to be heard and to be taken seriously and to get the necessary help. And at times it doesn't even need to lead to any kind of legal litigation. It can just be a simple matter of reporting and then course correcting as an institution.
Yeah, I mean, that is what we're hoping for. I mean, again, I want to just say that people do have the right to seek legal recourse, but that these are not quick fixes. They're often expensive, time consuming, and people wait years for any kind of justice to be meted out to them. So it's, as I said, it's deeply frustrating, and I think part of what work that we're trying to do, and it feels completely bizarre to have to say this, but if you are pregnant and listening to this, please download that resource, have it in your hospital bag, or give it to your partner or your mother, a family member. As Koliso, I think, was mentioning earlier, have a birth companion with you. You are allowed to have a birth companion with you, and someone who can advocate for you, keep an eye out for you, have a little pen in hand or your phone ready, and make sure that you greet the healthcare workers caring for you, and that you get their names. These things are really important because of the state of sort of what we're currently dealing with. And again, we wish that they didn't have to be, but this is a reality of where we're at this time.
Absolutely. Just again, Julie, as we wrap it up, that website for Embrace?
It's embrace.org.za. If you go to embrace.org.za and you have a look at our work around birth, you will find the resources available there. Otherwise, we've got a very active social media presence. And so you can go onto Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Embrace_ZA, find us online, and you'll see all the resources there if you want to just quickly be able to save them on your phone.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for the conversation. That was Julie Mentor, and she is with Embrace, and of course Koliso Mananga before that, who is a litigation attorney with Women's Legal Center. And unfortunately, we had some audio issues here, experimenting and trying to move us into a digital age, so that as you stream along with us, you would have known, from the last quarter of last year, we started sort of testing out live streams on our social media platforms. And then we thought, well, since some of our guests come to us remotely, it's only then right for us to try and put in some kind of Skyping visual for you as well, so you can see who we're talking to when we are in conversation. And there's going to be some kinks along the way as we get it correct, but we're going to get it correct, and we beg your indulgence whilst we do all of that. It's just gone 22 2 o'clock on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. Let's take a quick break here. We come back and we shift gears just a little bit in a moment.
Beyond the Headline on SAFM.
Essentially, it means that you don't believe that the IEC has the capacity to ensure that the elections are free and fair. And by the way, also you ask that resources be directed into an independent parallel vote tabulation process run by independent organizations.
We believe that the IEC are competent, that they are free and fair, but human beings are fallible. And so what PVT does is, where there are potentially areas where we need to get eyes onto the station, a PVT running algorithms will pick that up. Now, I cannot understand, other than, of course, the fact that the ANC, we believe, has got a lot to hide.
You've got a lot to hide too, Emma.
In terms of me not being willing to disclose the details of discussions with embassies, yeah, I definitely am not going to disclose those at present. If the ANC had nothing to hide, they would have no problem with the close scrutiny.
Thank you so much for your time. Emma Powell is the DA Shadow Minister for International Relations and Corporations.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
Why does that sting get me into a groovy mode? I have no idea. It is stages, pages, screens, and more as we take a look at a brand new production. It's called The Classroom, and it's a riveting stage drama that unfolds within the dynamic confines of a school setting where the echoes of teenage anguish vibrate through the corridors. And we're catching up with writer and director Bopaki Sipapu, who's joining me now on the line. How are you doing this afternoon, Bopaki?
How are you too?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Okay, give me the synopsis on The Classroom. Sounds exciting.
Much more. Yes, The Classroom is a riveting stage drama that unfolds within the dynamic confines of a school setting, where the echoes of teenage anguish vibrate through the corridors. Ma'am, this is a very compelling play that delves deep into intricate worker-student relationships, exposing the multifaceted nature of bullying that lurks in the shadows of adolescence. So, when you'll be entering the auditorium, you'll be introduced to a diverse group of students navigating the complex of social dynamics of modern classrooms.
I love it. Does it take inspiration from a particular sort of experiences or particular communities? Where did you find the inspiration for you to pen the classroom?
Yes, I got the inspiration from the former principal of Sinovile Primary School in Soshanguve, Mr. Lucky Manzini. He's the one who gave me encouraging words around 2 years back. So even today, I still thank him for his valuable words that anti-bullying is a thorny issue in education sector.
Yeah.
So as a creative artist, I should consider stating something that aligns with the syllabus of Department of Education. So that's what we did.
And tell me this, I don't know if you are youth or you are not youth, Bopaki, but it must be interesting to tell a story that is centered around the lived experience of young people in, township South Africa.
Yes, you are right, because even today, if you can hear about the recent cases or the past cases of anti-bullying, they're so shocking. They shock even all of us, not only learners. You see, but this is something that we see them on television or we hear them about from radio stations and newspapers. We read about those kind of stories. But this is a story that's aligned with Soshanguve. That's where we come from. So we pick up some of the incidents from Soshanguve.
And since it's centered around the community and a school in Soshanguve, I'm thinking, Uti, there's obviously a lot of familiarity as well, and probably in some of even the language and the colloquialism that you use is very localized to Soshanguve.
Yes, they call it Pretoria lingo.
Yes. So are we seeing a lot of Pretoria lingo coming out in the classroom?
Definitely. Why not?
I love it. And tell me a bit about some of the characters that you have penned down for this particular play.
Yeah. There is a character here, a very polite character, who is the protagonist by the name of Konyana. Konyana, it means a small lamb. Yeah, so how polite for the sheep they are, or the lambs. So this guy is very polite, but it's the biggest mistake that he's doing for being polite. Because of instead of reporting what is happening to him in school, he hesitates to report. And then, as you know, to hesitate to report bullying is also something that causes this kind of weird incident that we hear about them. So, and then there is this guy called Merwalo. Merwalo, it simply means a troublesome. Merwalo, he always acts innocent. Is an innocent kind of person in front of everyone, but is not innocent.
I see. All right. Well, listen, it sounds like an interesting sort of culmination of characters from protagonist and, of course, to the unsuspecting targets that become the targets of the various bullies within this play. As we wrap it up, Bopaki, how long is the play running and where are we? At the State Theatre, right?
Yes, the State Theatre is going to run for 2 weeks.
Okay. 2 weeks beginning when and ending when?
Yeah, 2 weeks on the 13th of April is open for everyone, even the others, because this play is not only communicating with learners, it's also communicating with me and you. That's why it says in the story, we say it's a lasting impression that ignites conversation about the urgent need for anti-bullying initiatives in schools, and not only in schools, but in society at large.
Lovely stuff. Bopaki, I can hear the enthusiasm and the excitement in you. We do love a youthful theatre practitioner, and that was Bopaki Sipapu, who is the writer and director of The Classroom. It does open on the 13th of April, and from my calculation, 2 weeks would run it until round about the 27th of April at the State Theatre. So if you want to go and see a locally produced play that's speaking to very pertinent current issues right now, especially dynamics that unfold within the confines of a school setting, and in this case in particular, The Classroom, exploring themes of bullying. It sounds like it should be an exciting one with probably a very youthful cast as well. Always nice to see a young, fresh crop of thespians take to the stage. It is time for us to get into Nalibali now. It is a Thursday. We're getting into Nalibali, and it should run us till the top of the hour, and then Anne Musa is coming through with your headline. Well, rather with the 2 o'clock bulletin.
Introducing a collection of Audi Black and Urban Special Edition models crafted for the bold and curated for the progressive. From the sporty Audi S3 and elegant A4 to the distinctive Q2 and Q3, each vehicle has been created to be an extension of your identity. Style, design, comfort and technology is yours to own with a guaranteed future value and a competitive monthly installment through Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.za to discover more.
Eskom understands that electricity is an integral part of running a business. However, electricity demand is currently higher than supply, and energy efficiency is critical. Businesses are encouraged to reduce consumption between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. by not leaving electrical equipment on standby mode, as well as turning off unnecessary lighting. We can reduce load shedding by working together. Every kilowatt counts.
Luton Town and Nottingham Forest are caught up in the same predicament. They both want out of the current pitfall. The Hatters want to dish out instructions at Kenilworth Road.
Great boy Morris! A captain's goal from the man with the armband.
But the Tricky Trees have different notions to grab vital points on an away ground.
Has to be a goal from Hodges! There we go!
This is the Premier League. Luton Town FC versus Nottingham Forest FC on Saturday, 16 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, 15 March 2024 at the SABC Tebeja Studios in Eastern Cape. Rhodes University will take on Nelson Mandela University in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent and non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. If you want to attend the debate, you can email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
And welcome to Nali Bali. Have you ever heard of the word greed? Well, greed is the excessive desire to acquire, consume, or possess. It is related to envy, feeling hostility towards someone else who is seen to have more advantage. Envy can carry feelings of sadness, anger, jealousy, or resentment. It is usually felt most in children who find it hard to get their needs met and therefore feel frustrated or insecure, and is often connected to low self-esteem. Before we listen to today's story called Maruko and the Greedy Baboons, written by Jason van Rensberg, let's all get up and dance. Once upon a time, there was a land where marula trees grew. All the animals loved the delicious marula tree. One day when the animals were feasting on the fruit, they were surprised to find a human baby in the tree. Mother Elephant used a trunk to gently lift the baby out of the tree. She carefully carried the baby to the nearby village. The villagers named the little boy Maruko, and a kind young couple became his parents. When Maruko was 8 years old, the river running through the river slowed down and then stopped completely. When the river was dry, the villagers were desperate for water. A group of villagers traveled up the dry riverbed to see what had caused the water to stop. On their return, they reported,
Guys, it's those greedy baboons.
No, and they are so selfish. They've built a huge dam to keep all this water for themselves.
Yeah, those baboons.
Ish.
Wait a minute. Are those the same baboons that have been sneaking into our homes and stealing from us?
Asked Maruko, and indeed they were. Maruko wanted to help the people of the village, so he decided to stop the baboons from causing problems. He set off to find the baboons and tear down their dam.
I shall return once the baboons have been chased away.
Maruko said to his parents,
Please be careful, Maruko. Take this water skin for your journey.
His mother said. His father looked in his leather pouch and handed Maruko some biltong to eat. Maruko thanked his parents and set off to find the dam the baboons had built. Along the way, Maruko found a thirsty snake in the dry riverbed. He immediately offered the snake some water. The snake hissed his gratitude.
Thank you, kind boy. You saved my life. I will join your journey and bring water back to the river.
So Maruko and the snake traveled together up the dry riverbed. A little further on, Maruko met a hungry eagle. He took some of the biltong his father had given him and shared it with the eagle.
You have earned a friend in me, Maruko.
Screeched the eagle.
I'll watch over you from the skies and be your eye from above.
The eagle assured Maruko. Then Maruko came upon an elephant struggling to reach the marula fruits at the top of the tree. His trunk wasn't long enough, so Maruko climbed the tree and gathered fruits for the elephant, who boomed with appreciation.
You've helped me, little one. I shall repay you by joining you on your journey. Here, you may ride my back.
Finally, Maruko and his new friends came to the heart of the baboons' territory. They went to the top of the hill to see the baboons' dam from above. They saw there were too many baboons for Maruko and his friends to get near the dam wall. Maruko's clever mind went to work.
We need a plan.
Maruko said, huddling with his friends.
Okay, we'll use the baboons' greed against them.
He said. Then Maruko whispered to the snake.
Okay, snake, please slither into the baboon's lair and bring back some of their gold.
Yes, I'll be back soon,
said the snake, and silently made his way to the baboon's hideout. The snake swallowed as much gold as he could and left as noiseless as he came. Maruko took some of the gold and buried it near the dam wall. Then he went and showed the remaining gold to the baboons.
Hey guys, look what I found near the dam walls. You never know, maybe there's more.
When they saw the gold, the greedy baboons immediately started digging around the dam walls. As they dug holes and tunnels, they made the dam walls weaker and weaker. Maruko encouraged them to dig more whenever they found another piece of gold where he had buried. The baboons dug deeper and wider. Eagle was flying high above the dam and saw its walls starting to sag. She screeched a warning to Maruko. So Maruko and the snake hopped on the elephant's back and quickly climbed the hill far above the creaking dam walls. The greedy baboons were too busy to notice that Maruko and his friends had left. Just as Maruko and his friends reached the top of the hill, the dam walls crumbled and the water rushed free. The baboons were caught in the flood of water and washed down the river. The river swept them past Maruko's village far away so they could never bother anyone again. The villagers rejoiced as the river flowed once more. With the greedy baboons gone, peace was finally restored to the land.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. It was not an easy job. It's my pleasure, of course. I'm very happy that we have brought water back to the village, but I think this was the first of many adventures with my friends and me.
Said Maruko. The snake, the eagle, and the elephant all nodded their heads in agreement. It was not long before the four friends set off on their next adventure. And so we come to the end of another Nali Valley story time. Today's story was called Maruko and the Greedy Baboons, written by Jason Van Rensbeck. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Valley website www.nalivalley.org or Mobi site www.nalivalley.mobi. You'll find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Valley Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Valley, it starts with a story.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, Cape Police probe triple murder and power outage affecting water supply in Bloemfontein area. Good afternoon. Police say they have yet to make arrests after the fatal shooting of 3 men at Mandalay just outside Khayelitsha in Cape Town yesterday. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says the incident took place in Dickens Drive. He provides more details.
Information at our disposal suggests that unknown gunmen opened fire at the 3 males aged between 20 and 24 and fled the scene on foot. The motive for the triple murder is yet to be determined.
Eastern Cape Police are hot on the heels of 4 suspects that are allegedly involved in the kidnapping of a 34-year-old woman in Kariga. It's alleged Sonam Gaja was accosted by 4 men while exiting her driveway on Wednesday. Eastern Cape Police spokesperson Priscilla Naidu says police are investigating a case of kidnapping and has urged anyone with information linked to the case to immediately contact the police.
It is alleged at about 0750, Sonam Gaja drove out of a yard in Mozelle Road in Kariga, and while waiting for the gate to close behind her, she was accosted by 4 males. Her driver's side window was smashed and she was dragged out of the vehicle and shoved into a waiting white Hyundai vehicle. The vehicle sped off in the direction of Motherwell.
The Mangaung Metro says it's working on addressing the current water supply challenges affecting the Yewelsig area in Bloemfontein following a power failure. Metro spokesperson Kondile Kedama says the city is currently experiencing a power outage at the Yewelsig pump station. Water supply will be interrupted while power utility Sentlek is attending to the problem. Kedama says it's not clear when power will be restored and residents will be updated on developments. The Senzo Mehiwa main trial will resume tomorrow at the High Court in Pretoria after Judge Rata Mokgetleng ruled the confession statements allegedly made by the accused Musi Sibiya and Bongani Ntanzi can be admitted as evidence. Mokgetleng found these statements were made freely and voluntarily. State Prosecutor George Baloy says he would now like to call to the main trial witnesses that have already taken a stand in the trial within the trial.
As a court, please, Molot, after consultation with my colleagues, we have agreed, subject to approval by the court, that we can adjourn the matter to tomorrow for the continuation of the proceedings. Naturally, going back to the main trial, and we will then continue with the evidence of the witnesses who testified in the trial within the trial.
And finally, wildlife officials on the Indonesian island of Sumatra have launched a search for at least 2 critically endangered tigers after 2 villagers were killed in recent attacks. 4 other people have been injured by the big cats in the past month. The BBC's Richard Hall reports.
Sumatran tigers are exceptionally rare. It's thought there's only about 400 of the big cats in the wild, and 40 of them live in the Bukit Barisan Selatan National Park, where the search has been launched. A team of rangers, a vet and an animal behaviour expert are tracking the tigers and plan to set traps to catch the big cats. Local people have been told to keep away from the area to prevent any confrontation with the predators. Sumatran tigers are under threat from serious habitat loss and poaching.
Recapping the top story, police say they have yet to make arrests after the fatal shooting of 3 men at Mandalay just outside Khayelitsha in Cape Town yesterday. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Fly better to your next holiday. Book your flights with Emirates to a holiday in Dubai, London, Istanbul or Paris. Look forward to delicious regionally inspired cuisine, enjoy free-flowing premium drinks and relax to your favorite movies on the way. Because it's not just about the destination, it's how you get there. This year, fly Emirates. Fly better.
ABC Municipal League outfit, the General FC, want to be titled as giant killers by silencing TS Galaxy in the last 16. Meanwhile, the Rockets want to emphasize that they are the 2019 Nedbank Cup champions, and it's not by mistake. Experience the unmatched passion of Ipola Lasemzansi. The General FC takes on TS Galaxy FC on Sunday, 17 March at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
See the nation through the people's eyes. See tears that flow like rivers from the skies. And where it seems there are only borderlines, where others turn inside, you shall rise. You shall There's disaster in your past, boundaries in your path. What do you desire when lifts you higher? You don't have to be extraordinary, just forgiving those who never heard your cries. You shall You shall rise and look toward the skies. Where others fail, you prevail in time. You shall rise. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You shall rise. You shall rise. You shall rise. Sooner or later we must try living. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. See the nation through the people's eyes. See tears flow like rivers from the skies. And where it seems they're only borderlines, where others turn inside, you shall rise. You shall rise. You shall rise. You shall rise. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. You may never know if you never lay low. Sooner or later we must try living.
It is Metafix. Living in Darfur is the name of the particular song. It's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock as we enter the second hour of the show. We are, by the way, live streaming on our social media platforms. You can find us on X at SAFM Radio, as well as Instagram and Facebook as well. Wherever you play, we also play there. Just moving some things around for the second hour of the show. We thought we'd catch up with a regular voice on this particular show. We often times call on her to share some of her advice and professional experiences as a parenting coach, and we are looking at her new book now. She's just released a new ebook. It's called The Parenting Playbook, Essential Tools for Your Parenting Toolbox. Ayanda Tijani is joining me. How are you doing this afternoon, Ayanda?
Listeners, I'm absolutely having a great day.
Oh, things we love to hear, people having absolute great days. So it's been a long time coming. I mean, you've been a parenting coach for a while now, and have gone through some experiences and helped folks get through some experiences. And now you've put that all together in an ebook called The Parenting Playbook.
Absolutely. One of the things that you come to realize. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, you come to realize that a lot of us have the same kind of problems in terms of our parenting journey. But I think the one thing that I realize is that just the thinking about it, or the intentionality, I like to say, about, okay, so how do I make my decision? I know a lot of people hear this all the time. There's no manual for parenting. But the reality is, if you have a particular goal or a particular objective in terms of, okay, what is my parenting goal? And if you ask a lot of parents, do you have a goal in terms of your parenting? Have you been very intentional in terms of your parenting? We're not really thinking about it this way. We just take it as it goes. And I've found that that's something that's really helped me over the years. I always talk about my single parenting journey, which puts a new spinner into the whole works. It makes it complicated even more than just the whole parenting thing. I think it has helped me really come up with some kind of systems that have made it a little bit easier. And I really wanted to share some of that. And obviously through my coaching and my workshop experience, I've gotten some of the gist of what other parents are going through, and I've put that together into that book. I think my favorite part of the book is the reflective exercises, which basically help parents to kind of like put their thoughts together. Think about, okay, why do you do certain things? Why do you think like that around parenting? And maybe is there a better way of doing it?
Yeah, and I want to explore the reflective exercises, because I also think it speaks to exactly that. How often do parents actually sit back and take stock of themselves? But before we get there, I wonder, we have books on just about every kind of theme and topic, right? We have self-help books on anything imaginable under the sun. And so why would there be, no sort of deliberate focus in talking about parenting and in talking about parenting journeys, and particularly among South African parents that maybe even are faced with a nuanced set of elements that come into play on this parenting journey?
I think a lot of us are in the transition between figuring out, okay, this is how I was parented, and this is what happens today. And because of that, in many instances, we kind of like in a balancing act. We're really trying to figure out what exactly we're doing. So for me, just like any topic, one of the things that I've done over the couple of years is I went back to school, did a bit of psychology, postgrad level actually. So now what you learn about this beauty of education, reading up and getting information about any topic, is that you just have a bigger pool in terms of your thought processes. So the other day, in terms of one of my workshops, I had a dad who was very, very anti this whole idea of modern parenting, no more hitting your children. And he had his very, from his perspective, reasoning as to why, you spoil the rod if you don't, the whole conversation. And I basically was trying to give him a bigger picture about, okay, let's say you're raising this young man, young lady, and you are constantly only just thinking about hitting them if they don't do something right. How the brain works in terms of psychological and your mind. In the long term, you can almost see people who are treated that way in terms of their homes, in terms of how they act in the workplace, how they act in their relationships. There's a fear that you instill, okay? And then also defining things like, the whole concept of discipline is actually supposed to be about guiding and teaching. So that means a lot more sitting down with our children, having conversations, saying, but why are you doing this? And obviously when it's depending on their age, you're going to have a lot more conversations. It might be frustrating, but there is a huge benefit to them, because once you allow them to express themselves, once you debate with them and challenge them, you're just helping them in terms of how they see day to day. And when they go out into this world, they may be in situations where there's peer pressure, all these things. And if they know who they are and they're very steadfast in their own confidence and what they're doing with their lives, they'll be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. That's something I'm not interested in. The reality is those voices that they need to have to be able to do that have to be trained already in our home.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are not aware of that. We think that they're just going to figure this thing out when they go to university. It just doesn't work that way.
And we talk about, as you say at the start of our conversation, that there is no manual to parenting, but perhaps there really should be, particularly in preparation. If you think and you know that you want to be a parent one day and you want to have children one day, perhaps one should then start tapping into resources and which engage your thinking and that challenge maybe your perspectives, even your thinking, in order for you to start asking yourself pertinent questions that could make you a better, healthier parent.
Absolutely. I found that one of the best things parenting has done for me is that in just being a more reflective parent, like raising a teenager, when I say, Bridget, who always asks me why. Hey, what's the logic? I've learned to really be intentional in how I think about things as well. And almost like have these conversations with myself to say, wait, do you really need to do that? Okay, wait, what is the more important thing? And this is something that we can do in that as we learn as reflective parents, we are also able to teach our children. And we need to be honest, Bridget. A lot of us, we want to act like just because we're adults, we know everything. For me, this is the one thing that I've really been very intentional about shying away from in terms of my kids. Because, I'll make an example. My child will go to school, teacher will say something that's very mean, my child will be hurt the whole day. And this will happen with different adults. You have to be honest with your children and say, listen, sometimes adults don't know everything. So you don't always have to look at up to every adult and think they'll have the answer. You can say, you know what, that person is an adult, but they're wrong sometimes. So how do I encourage my children to think, to feel already this is the home environment that I'm creating, and sometimes it means sometimes they have to challenge me. And I need to be honest even when they challenge me sometimes, And here's what we usually have conversations around when we talk about the whole discipline and this. So, and because then the respect comes, and then the modern parenting element also comes.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying to my child, listen, you are allowed to have conversations, you're allowed to disagree with me. However, I'm very intentional about how you still show me respect as an elder, even when we are having a disagreement. So that's now the part where I'm guiding and I'm teaching my son, and I'm saying, yes, you see, you don't agree with me, but this is how you address that. You don't address that in a way that you shout at me, in a way that you go and bang the door. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
But you can't say, Mom, let's have a sit down. There's something that happened the other day. I'm uncomfortable with it because of 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can have a conversation that builds both of us.
And in preparation for your book, The Parenting Playbook, I mean, what were some of the sort of observations or shared experiences that some of the parents you engaged with shared with you? Because I'm thinking, particularly as Africans, so much has changed and yet so much has stayed the same, right? And there's a huge sort of missing link in how we interact depending on generations. And I'm pretty sure those dynamics come into play as younger millennial parents who are very much still connected with the old ways, but are also very much straddled in the new way of things, and just finding that beautiful middle ground. Yeah, that balance.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to answer you in this way. So I look at parenting in this way. You have your frontline staff stage of your parenting, where you have your child who's between newborn to about 9 years old. You're running around them, you're removing fires, you're making sure they don't get hurt. They play, they kids, they baby. But once they start turning 10, we need to be very intentional as parents in preparing to move to the background. And I call this being the support stage, where you now start having conversations that allow your child to start thinking choices, thinking consequences for whatever decisions they're making in their lives. And basically what that does is as they grow into their 18-year-old, 19-year-old self, it becomes more automated for them. It becomes easier for them to say, this is what I feel like, this is what I want to do. And obviously, this is a very important stage, Bridget, because this is where they're making decisions about the partners that they get involved with, the careers they choose. And this thing becomes a practice. Then you make choices of things that you're fully aware, I like doing this, I don't like doing this. And you realize that as we are growing in terms of like just the modern times, it's not like back in the day where you can just be a doctor and live your whole life happily. If you do not like doing that, you understand the mental implications that happen with all of that. So it's so important that we are raising our children with that in mind.
Yeah. I mean, easier said than done, right? Because I think probably easier. The children already are born into this world and this dichotomy where things move and shift and they're fluid. And when you are sort of in your own ways or have been raised in particular ways, it's harder, more difficult for an adult to navigate from front to backline stuff. Or just be conscious of knowing that I have to think along these lines as a new age parent.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, I guess the justification to say, are you going to be the one running around this child for the rest of their lives? In many instances, when we are not living our own lives to the fullest in terms of our own interests, then that is when we kind of have this, we don't have a thin line in terms of what is our children's lives and what is us. And I think it's so important because our children are constantly watching us. They're seeing us as we go to the workplace. They're seeing us as housewives, maybe, as how we show up, and they're learning from us. So the more you have and the more fulfilled your life is as a parent, you're basically shining a very almost unconscious light for your child to say, I want to be like mom. Look at how mom interacts with, their work. Look at how, all of those things that your child can look up to and aspire to. So we really do have to challenge ourselves. And it's not uncomfortable, Bridget, I promise you. Like when I was making you that example of I've been a perfect example of raising my son, who's now 16, in a way that he has these conversations with me. And sometimes, as upset as I am, I'm like, I see the logic in what he says. Yeah. And I have to take a breather and be like, okay, damn, this child is actually right. And I think the most vulnerable thing I've learned to do is to go back to him and say, babe, I thought about what you said, and maybe you're right. I'm not being consistent with my messaging because I'm flapping all over the place. Yeah. I need to rethink that. And for me, that vulnerability has helped me also become a better person. So it's almost like we're growing together, and he's holding me accountable to what idea of a parent I want to be, and I do the same for him. And we can just have very honest conversations. Yeah. And I just wanted to add, Bridget, one of the really important things, and I know it's not always the case because a lot of our parents in South Africa have different circumstances where you may not necessarily be able to be the one who's the primary caregiver of your child. But, even with whether your child may be living with their granny, with their father, with their mom, you need to be intentional about the time that you do have, such that, whether it's a weekend, just a holiday, you are making that effort to get to know them, to really understand where they're coming from, that you can be able to impart more of what you know and who you are onto your child. And we basically see it because it becomes such a beautiful product at the end of the day.
Absolutely. You talk about modeling. I'm just reflecting back, and today is her birthday. Happy birthday to Lyra, by the way, celebrating a birthday today. But I remember meeting her mom in 22, meeting a mom haphazardly on vacation. They happened to be on vacation. We're all Pisces. And I was sitting there, and it clicked. And it clicked to me that, oh, this is where Lyra gets it from.
There you go.
Because her mother has always been, and in conversation, she's like, I always modeled the kind of woman that I ideally wanted to be for myself to my daughters. And I was conscious that they were observing and watching me in different roles as mother, as wife, as woman, but as myself first and foremost. And so, I poured into the cup of me. I prioritized me. I put myself first before them, before my husband, before, me, obviously, all things in consideration. But the message was, and so they've grown up to be women that are fully asserted, fully assured, and fully prioritize themselves and their needs and their happiness ultimately before anybody else. And it just, I was like, That's where she gets it from. That apple fell right underneath that tree.
Absolutely. Can you imagine if you're a parent, you're a radio host, you're a lawyer, you're a psychologist in training like myself, and already you are teaching your children, the mental health language, you're teaching your child all about being assertive, having conversations in a way that you are trained. Just imagine every time they go to school and have conversations with their peers and the presence that they'll have, because they're learning something which you did not learn from your parents, and it just becomes an additional toolbox in their pocket, basically, to debate, to have empathy with people, to just be amazing people.
And so vital. And this brings me back to what you were saying about your favorite part in the book is the reflective segment.
Yes.
Because I think, I don't know, does it allow for parents, does it give the tools for parents to do exactly that, to assess and reflect the kind of parent they are and ultimately the kind of person they are, in order to be the kind or model the kind of behaviors and parenting that they would like?
Oh, absolutely. Because remember, when we read stuff, it's so easy to just read everything. But once you sit down with a question, like let me say I ask you, Bridget, when you think of yourself as a mom, what is probably the one thing that you want to leave in terms of impact or legacy for your children?
Definitely a self-assured, self-determined, self-thinking child.
There you go. So now the question is, okay, so what are you doing in your home every day to just, let's say just 1% of something that you're contributing to give that? Then now you need to start to think and say, actually, maybe I haven't really been working with that in terms of a principle. Now what can I do? What can I do different? And then you do something like that. It's for me, it's like when we say if you were to put in 1% as an individual every day to just learn something. And I always think as parents, as people who have an opportunity to learn something, and then you also go teach your children, and your children become even more beautiful people. So I wanted to just make an example, Bridget, about the question you asked earlier, where I'm just thinking about that example that I know all of us struggle with as parents, where your children eat food and then they leave it in the fridge, and a lot of us end up shouting at them, either they eat too much or too little or whatever we dish. One of the principles that I've started very early on in my parenting is actually asking my children how much food they want. On a scale to 1 to 10, how hungry they are. So I would have shown them what it means. When you say 2, how many spoons that means. And the reason being is that I really hated when there's food in the fridge, that obviously you have plates that are left out and then 3 days later you have to throw that away. But I found that if I give them the responsibility to say, how much food do you want? I'm a 5, I'm a 6 in terms of my hunger, I'm a 10. Then I'm dishing for you based on how much you expressed your hunger to be. And then I expect you, because you made the choice, to finish your food because you said, I'm this much hungry. Then I can hold you accountable.
Yes. Sorry to jump into your thought. Let's hold it there for a second and quickly just dip into Ann Musa, and then we'll come right back. Ann Musa standing by with the headline news.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Bridget. In the headlines, the initiator of the hearing into the 9 EFF MPs has recommended they should be found guilty for their conduct during President Cyril Ramaphosa's budget vote speech and debate on the 9th and 10th of June 2022. Police say they have yet to make arrests after the fatal shooting of 3 men at Mandalay just outside Khayelitsha in Cape Town yesterday, and South Africa's manufacturing sector showed significant improvement in January compared to January 2023. I'll have details on these and other stories at 3.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with parenting coach Ayanda Tijani, who has a new ebook out, The Parenting Playbook, Essential Tools for Your Parenting Toolbox. And we were just touching on the point, Ayanda, on how you've sort of fostered responsibility, within your household with your kids, even small decisions such as how hungry are you? ultimately boils down to you being empowered as a young person.
Absolutely. So giving them that choice, which is a very big part of the parenting ebook, and then saying, then I expect you to be accountable. Therefore, you are going to do as you said in terms of the consequences. If you say you're 3 or 4, you're going to get that much food and you need to finish your plate. If you say you're 10, okay, no problem. You finish your plate. And we've learned to really make it work in terms of the decision making. So for instance, let's say another example I think a lot of parents struggle with is like cleaning the kids clean, keeping their rooms clean. You can even have conversations with stuff like that to say, okay, my son who's in grade 10 has less time to have leisure in terms of his school schedule and stuff like that. But I'm able to negotiate with him how often he cleans his room. And sometimes to my disadvantage, he may not clean it as often as I want, but he would have explained to me, listen, Mom, I have these chores, I have this much schoolwork. And it allows us to always have this communication thing happening. And sometimes as a parent, I have to allow him to negotiate with me to a point of compromise in terms of my own rules. But allow them that. Because for me, I'm picturing him in 5 years' time having to negotiate his salary. And I'm seeing this young man who's going to say, listen, for my time, this is what I expect. And it's something I've struggled with so much. So that home environment for me is preparing them for the adult world. And I try to use this ebook to really help parents to have an idea of how they can do this with just these 4 points. Constantly being consistent in how we care for our children, giving them the unconditional love. In terms of the first C, which is the care, the consistency. Even when your child has done something to frustrate you, disappoint you, if you are the kind of mom who hugs and gives a physical warmth, you need to constantly do that. Even if they didn't do so well at school, even if they're frustrating you, even if you're fighting with them, never make them feel like they have to pander for your attention, or now because they've done something wrong, they no longer are worth your attention. Because in the long term, that breeds issues that are like people pleaser issues. You want to just stay away from that. And then the last two is the choices that I spoke about and the consequences. A lot of people think that just because we're modern parents, we're not trying to discipline our children. That's not true. We're disciplining them in a way that helps with their accountability, that helps them take responsibility.
Yeah, and I think it's so important what you say there, the allowing of your children to negotiate with you, even to a point of compromise, because I think, there's so many layers to that. When we just look at even the social dynamics of the world we live in and our ability to negotiate relationships, for instance, we take for granted how much negotiating there is in relationships and the compromise that comes with that. And often our kids are ill-equipped for just navigating that landscape, and everything that comes under your ability to be able to negotiate, whether it's your worth, whether it's your values, whether it's a course of action, whatever it is, it's such an important fundamental communication and social psychological skill to be able to harness very early on.
Yes, and if you look at how we were raised in terms of, I say this, when I say jump, you say how high.
Yeah, because there's no negotiating in my house.
Exactly. And we want to move away from that, because the careers that our children are going to get into now, in many instances you look at these young children who are influencers, and they get to do so well. You want to almost make sure that your home is a breeding ground for someone who's able to think out of the box, someone who's able to stand up for themselves, someone who really knows what they want to do with their lives. And that means allowing them to try things out in the safety of your home and making them confident enough to put up their hand and say, I can do that, And when they fail, to be that comfort, to say, it happens. Oops. So that's one of the parts that I talk about in the books, under that topic of that care and consistency. That, even when your children fail, you want to make light of mistakes that they make. You regulate. Listen, Bridget, we've gotten to a point in my house where we didn't have glasses that were actually, we were using plastic cups. But I would make sure that with every glass that breaks, no matter how angry I am, because that was a gift from Mang Mang, I will express that, listen, these things happen. Mom still makes mistakes. Even as an adult, you need to don't take it hard. Don't make it something that breaks you. Just be more cautious how you hold a glass. Make it a learning experience and laugh about it. And I see them now as they grow, when they make mistakes like that, they laugh at themselves. And I know that's me. And I'm like so excited because I've gone through stages in my life where I've had serious depression issues just because, perfectionism, trying to make something go exactly the way I wanted. And I wanted to make sure that my children don't have the same issue in that regard.
And what we're talking about here is not parenting without consequence, right? Because as you say, you explore four fundamentals in the book: care, consistency, choices, and consequences. So you can parent softly and consciously, but also there can be consequences to actions.
Oh, absolutely. Your children, for instance. I mean, let me tell you, I think the most toxic thing I've done as a parent. At some point, little one was like, "No, mommy, I'm too tired. I refuse." I'm also going through my own things at this point with school and everything, and they refuse to go sweep my car and clean my car.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, then I'm also on strike. I'm not cooking.
Tit for tat.
Tit for tat. We start. Everyone's hungry. Now they have to go wash my car. Now I must start cooking. Win-win situation. We never had that kind of conversation again because we saw that I can also be crazy mama.
Right? Yes.
And I'm not even shouting. I'm just saying there's an element of reciprocity in this relationship. I'm the mom. I don't always have everything, just readily available. I'm not always a full cup. But when I ask you to do certain things where you have to go out of your way to do something for me as your parent, I do that for you all the time.
Yeah.
I also expect you to do the same. So the word reciprocity, I use it so often in my home, and it's something that even in the social skills that we were talking about, I'm also helping them look out for in terms of the type of friends they have.
Yeah.
If your friend gave you a stock sweep last week, make sure that you have something nice as well to give back. If they gave you a hug when you're feeling sad, do the same for them. And I really believe that it will help them just be better people in terms of how they choose friends, how they choose their social circles, and build the communities around them.
And I mean, everything that I'm hearing you talk about is definitely around consciousness and moving consciously within the relationship of parenting with your children, always aware that you are really influencing the human being more than anything else. You influencing the human being that ideally is going to go out there, and you just want the best, healthiest, most balanced human you possibly can. For anybody that wants to get their hands on your book, the Parenting Playbook, Essential Tools for Your Parenting Toolbox, which platforms is it available on?
So if you go to my Instagram page and just mention you want the book, the ebook, on any of my messaging, both on Instagram and Facebook, and just give me your email address, I'll be able to share it with you. On WhatsApp only, the number's only for WhatsApp. It's on 078-170-1152. Anyone can just drop me a message and I'll definitely send a copy of that as well. I mean, we are at an age where we are fully aware that parenting is half in terms, if we do the parenting thing right, we've done half the job. Yes, our children will go out in the world, they'll experience stuff, but because we've given them a solid foundation, they'll be able to say, listen, they'll weather the storms, basically. So you want to do that as much as you can, and I'm hoping in the process you become a better person as a parent as well.
Absolutely. Ayanda Tijani, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. She is a parenting coach, and you can find her on social media. And that WhatsApp number, once again, is 078-170-1152. If you'd like to get your hands on that ebook resource, The Parenting Playbook, Essential Tools for Your Parenting Toolkit. I think even if you're not a parent as yet, but you're planning on being a parent, there is no better time than today to start thinking about what does that look like within the realm of your existence, and what kind of person, what kind of human being, and ultimately what kind of parent would you like to be, and start already isolating the areas in you that you find a little bit challenging perhaps, or that you'd like to interrogate a little bit further to see whether or not would these be good traits to bring into a parenting dynamic. You don't always have to wait until you have the children before you start doing the work to make sure that you are better placed when you have children. So 078-170-1152 is the WhatsApp number, and you can send Ayanda a message there, and then she'll drop you the ebook. Let's take a quick break. Aldrin St. Pierre is coming through.
Beyond the Headline on SAFM.
Do you know, as the Road Accident Fund, whether there have been any cases at all where the courts are actually in cahoots with these lawyers?
The courts are not necessarily in cahoots with the lawyers. So it's the practice that has been happening over the years, that you have 82% of the cases where the judges are just rubber stamping what the lawyers have written. And that's Judge Dunstan Mlambo was warning against this practice, to say they need to look deeper into the documents that they are rubber stamping.
Yeah, Macintosh Polela is the head of communications at the Road Accident Fund.
Beyond the Headline with Aldrin St. Pierre, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to The Full Circle.
Aldrin St. Pierre is in the building, getting ready to bring you Beyond the Headline. How are you doing?
Good. How do you do?
I'm fantastic. Gashi, Sanjay, but I'm all right.
Yeah, cheese. But can we get some more rain, please?
Rain would be a good thing.
Can we get some more rain, please? Oh, the
and
grass
we're in
is
autumn,
burning.
aren't we?
Huh?
We're in autumn.
But can we get a bit of rain? Like something, yeah.
I've stopped watering. I'll just die, and then we'll resuscitate you in summer.
So you down the year towards
we'll
spring.
figure it out,
towards spring. So coming up on the show this afternoon, we are in conversation with the Deputy President of the IFP, that is Inkosi Mzamo Buthelezi, as we look at the manifesto that has been launched by the IFP, and the focus, of course, is going to be on some of the economic proposals that they've made. And then also on the show this afternoon, yesterday, we were in conversation with the SATU on a report, a TPN Credit Bureau report that came out saying that around 3.3% of school staff were found to have been convicted of a crime, and some awaiting prosecution. So we'll be speaking to Elijah Mhlanga, who's the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, about it. But SATU, they're saying that they're quite skeptical about this particular report. Mm-hmm. And then also on the show this afternoon, the U.S. House of Representatives have finally passed a bill aimed at banning TikTok.
Really?
What's
up with TikTok, guys? I don't have a TikTok.
Yeah. The strange thing also about the TikTok, the problem with the America's...
Because you live on social media, yeah.
America's problem with TikTok, well, I'm not that active on TikTok.
Is it owned by China?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And so that's the problem. But the strange thing about it is also that Joe Biden just recently launched an account, a TikTok account, campaigning.
Oh.
Yes.
That's weird then.
Very, very weird. And he has this push now to ban TikTok in the US. But the CEO of TikTok he's also started his campaign calling on Americans to protest and and to push for this ban not to go ahead.
But
because
is this ban substantiated by something? If they say perhaps it will be used as a tool to infiltrate,
there's no evidence that has been provided. It has been allegations that have been made.
Okay.
There have been allegations that have been made. I remember there was also a report sometime last year about potential interference that had happened in one of the firms that actually manufacture some of the software relating to TikTok. Yeah, that was in China, but TikTok then dismissed it.
Yeah.
And then we thought that everything is okay, and then it's back again. But remember that the US had tried to do the same thing with Huawei as well.
Yes. Hey, the revolution will be TikToked, I guess. I don't know. Can't be televised, but it will be something on TikTok. Savannah Pambil. Aldrin St. Pierre coming up on Beyond the Headline. Let's take a quick break.
World Consumer Rights Day is celebrated on March the 15th. This year's theme is Safe Products, Safe Consumers, fostering accountability and compliance. Suppliers, do the right thing and comply with the CPA. Consumers, say no to unsafe products. We're about the consumer. Brought to you by the National Consumer Commission. Visit www.thencc.org.za for more.
Luton Town and Nottingham Forest are caught up in the same predicament. They both want out of the current pitfall. The Hatters want to dish out instructions at Kenilworth Road.
Great boy Morris! A captain's goal from the man with the armband.
But the Tricky Trees have different notions to grab vital points on an away ground.
Has to be a goal from Hodges! There we go!
This is the Premier League. Luton Town FC versus Nottingham Forest FC on Saturday, 16 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As we wrap it up, we're wrapping it up with a conversation focused on missing children and perhaps the impact that social media has in these particular cases. We all know that on February 19, 6-year-old Justin Smith went missing. Her mom had been at work and she had been left in the care of her mom's boyfriend. And of course, the search for the missing 6-year-old continues. And even though 3 suspects have had their first appearance at a respective court in the Western Cape. Many children go missing in South Africa yearly, and this has raised concern over the fact that cases of missing children are not getting the kind of attention that they warrant. And we thought we would touch base on this conversation with Nga Murumbedzi, who is a child activist. Good afternoon to you, Nga. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Well, thank you. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, you know, the numbers say close to 4,000 children go missing in South Africa. And this is according to SAPS statistics that were released in June of last year. Are we firstly bringing enough attention? I know some would go 4,000 children against 54 population of 54 million, but 4,000 children. Is 4,000 children too much? That's essentially, you know, a child every day going missing in South Africa.
Absolutely, Bridget. And I think even when we start to normalize and say, well, 4,000 versus, that becomes problematic. It has one child is just too much. And because the reality is with missing children, in the event that they're missing for a while, we have to start imagining not so great things, but it also reflects just the moral rot and decay that leads to children being abducted, children being kidnapped, you know, children being taken from what should be safe spaces. So the moment we start to speak of more than one child, more than 10 children, 100 children, 1,000 to 4,000, we are faced with a crisis.
And what are we not doing in order to safeguard our children? In order to safeguard our children within community as well. We Africans, we grow up with that old adage saying that a child is raised by a village, but clearly, as society, we are somehow no longer subscribing to that your child is my child, and so I will protect them the same way that I would protect my own.
That's such a complex question. The reality is the village has become the threat to the child. And you initially opened with statistics from 2023. Already it means from what was reported then to now, we may even have doubled the number, because we also know that children are preyed on within their communities. And unfortunately, what Jocelyn's case has also opened up for us is the primary caregiver, who should be the person who absolutely cares for the child, has now been accused of having a hand in threatening the well-being of the child. So short of tying your child to your belt string, in answer to your question, I believe we are doing what we can do, but within our own small circle of influence. Gone are the days where you can send your child, even within a playground in a complex that is guarded, to go and play, and you're not watching over them, because the predator has come so close to the home. So we are now living in a state of constant fear for our children. And it's a double-edged sword, Bridget, because as a parent, you don't want to instill the fear of the world into your child, because every day you have to release them. You release them into preschool, you release them into school, into church communities, to camp. But even within those spaces, Bridget, at the beginning of this year, we opened up with a child who had drowned at camp. So are we forgetting, or are we negating that responsibility to literally watch our children like a hawk? But also the inverse of that would be, we are now raising a generation of fearful children, and they're being preyed on by fearful adults, and there's a gap. And, from a psychology perspective, we have to explore. From an economic perspective, we have to explore. Even just from a sense of culture and identity and tradition, because so many things come into play. Again, back to Jocelyn, it was the element of traditional healing and spirituality has been dragged in. Was she sold because a spiritual healer, allegedly, quote unquote, has been identified? So there's so many complexities with it that we have to start imagining.
And the scariest part is what you've just said about, the predator has become so close. The predator is literally, the wolf is in the crawl, which makes it such a more complex and difficult thing. And the role in social media, the role that social media plays in these instances of missing children in particular, and galvanizing awareness and attention, I think it's one of the few positives that there are to platforms like X and its ability to connect so many of us when these situations arise.
Absolutely. When Jocelyn's case came up, Minister Cele cautioned communities against spreading false information. Then we have the advent of deepfake and the misinformation and malinformation on social media. But the inverse of that is social media can also bring us closer to the truth. So social media plays a dual role in that we can share information quickly, far and wide, across borders, quite effectively. But the inverse of that is, within all of that information, there are also people, who are self-identified, self-proclaimed private investigators. Someone saw the child. So there's a blend of real information and fake information, and we have to be cautious in what we consume on social media, especially when missing children are concerned, because it can also lead to vigilantism. If someone misidentifies someone or misrepresents information on social media, because I know on TikTok this case has gone viral. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone read a headline in one newspaper, and now they have a whole thesis. And on the ground, it becomes difficult for the law enforcement agencies to also implement the measures that are needed. Because should this case, as it is now, be in court, evidence be presented, there is now contamination. So we have to be very careful. In as much as social media can be a good tool in spreading awareness, information, it can also become quickly detrimental.
And what a thin line to err on, right? For us as community.
Yeah, absolutely. Within your circle of influence, I always say try to verify the information that you receive. Before you share, what is the purpose of you sharing? What is the end goal that you're hoping to achieve? But is the information verified? I know it's very easy for us to quickly spread, share on WhatsApp, share on TikTok, share on Instagram, go onto X. But it really, especially where children are concerned, especially where a life is at threat, we have to be very careful. I would urge that people, when they do consume this content on social media, look for verified sources. There are news houses that have followed this closely, that are trained to report on such information, but they also rely. You do find that sometimes news houses will reflect on what's happening on social media. So like you said, it is quite a thin line for us to tread on, but we owe it, especially to our children, to be careful of what we are spreading.
I mean, I wish we'd had more time, but I have also noticed the use of resources, for instance, like Amber Alert, which is something that we weren't very familiar with in South Africa, but I see now more and more it's being integrated onto platforms like Instagram, just for that widespread consciousness.
Amber Alert on Instagram, Facebook, I see it's also migrated into the TikTok space. That's one thing where we can be grateful, because what it does is it gives you precise information quickly shared. And those are great resources. Those are resources that we have to consume, but it also allows us to be very aware and vigilant within our communities. But what is the end of that? Because it's not all successful, right? When you do come across that, are we equipped and educated as communities to report to authorities? Say, for example, Child X, who is wearing a pink T-shirt and green shorts. I see them in my community. Do I go and grab the child? Do I call law enforcement? How quickly is their response time? How do you go about it? So I think, using platforms such as the one that you have here with the media, let's gain some strengthened mechanisms around initiatives like the Amber Alert, so that we can at least strengthen that element.
Yeah.
That it's infiltrated social media is a great thing, but let's just make it equally effective, so that at least community members know what to do at the end of it. Because we don't want to also create situations where someone feels they can now take the law into their own hands because they're scared that maybe the child will disappear again. And, from a law enforcement perspective, we have to explore, what do we do? I wouldn't know. Do you go and grab the child and take the child to your residence? Are you now part of, obstructing justice? How does it work? So I think it would be great if we can also explore, particularly things like Amber Alerts, missing children alerts. If you look at the missing children database, your heart will break. But, for those that we are able to actively seek and put pressure, let's do so in a law-abiding way.
Nga Murumbetsi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That is how we wrap it up. We always appreciate you choosing to be in conversation with us. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
Do business big. Sign up to selected Telkom Business LTE and fiber deals and get a free NSBC voucher worth 3,950 rands. T's and C's apply. Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, EFF MP's hearing continues in Parliament and South Africa's manufacturing output rises. Good afternoon. The initiator of the hearing into the 9 EFF MPs, Penelope Magona Danu, has recommended that they should be found guilty for their conduct during President Cyril Ramaphosa's budget vote speech and debate on the 9th and 10th of June 2022. They are Naledi Cherua, Anthony Matumba, Isaac Mafanya, Natasha Ntlangweni, Senau Tambo, Mutusi Muntwedi, Yuliswa Yaku, Babalwa Mutulelwa, and Polnita Mare. Tambo Kondo was the only one who testified. They were mainly charged for contempt of Parliament by the Powers and Privileges Committee. The 10th MP, Nonhlanhla Kondo, who was also charged, was found not guilty, as it was discovered that she was never in the house. Police say they have yet to make arrests after the fatal shooting of 3 men at Mandalay just outside Khayelitsha in Cape Town yesterday. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says the incident took place in Dickens Drive. He provides more details.
Information at our disposal suggests that unknown gunmen opened fire at the 3 males aged between 20 and 24 and fled the scene on foot. The motive for the triple murder is yet to be determined.
The Mangaung Metro says it's working on addressing the current water supply challenges affecting the Yevelsig area in Bloemfontein following a power failure. Metro spokesperson Kondile Kedama says the city is currently experiencing a power outage at the Yevelsig pump station. Water supply will be interrupted while Power Utility Sentlek is attending to the problem. Kedama says it's not clear when power will be restored and residents will be updated on developments. South Africa's manufacturing sector showed significant improvement in January compared to January last year. Data from Statistics South Africa shows manufacturing production increased by 2.6%. The largest positive contributions came from petroleum, wood, textiles and glass sectors. Nahau's Regional Secretary Sankelo Msila has confirmed that the strike by the workers of the Nelson Mandela University over wage negotiations dispute has been halted and they've reached an agreement with the institution. The strike entered its 3rd week yesterday. The workers marched to the university in Gqeberha to hand over a memorandum of demands which included an increase in salaries, medical aid contributions and housing allowance. Msila says the workers are back today.
The National Union has reached an agreement with the university and